Are we all ready? Yesterday at about 3:40 p.m., an accidental shooting incident occurred in a sheriff's office building near the Fresno airport. Occupying the building at the time were about a dozen sheriff's office employees. There are several rooms in the building, and the employees were in various locations throughout that structure. There were 4 people in the office where the incident occurred, including our deceased Deputy Sergeant, Rod Lucas. The sergeant and one of the detectives were discussing their equipment, specifically their backup weapons and how they carried them. The detective had his weapon out. During this discussion, the detective's weapon discharged. Sergeant Lucas was struck by the bullet in the chest and he dropped to the ground. CPR was immediately administered by those in the office and continued by ambulance personnel, and also continued at the hospital by CRMC personnel. However, Sergeant Lucas succumbed to his injury and he was pronounced deceased. All witnesses have been interviewed except for the involved detective, and the interview will take place soon. We do not know yet the mechanics of how the weapon discharged, and I do not want to speculate until all interviews and the investigation is complete. The witnesses in the room were all in different places, different positions, doing a variety of tasks. They saw and or heard what happened from their own positional perspective. So far, we have absolutely no reason to believe this was nothing more than a tragic, accidental shooting. The name of the detective involved will not be released at this time. He is a 9-year veteran of the Sheriff's Office. I'm also not releasing the weapon specifics at this time, only that it was an improved secondary weapon for the detective. Our deceased deputy is Sergeant Rod Lucas. He's 46 years old. He started with the Sheriff's Office in September of 1996, 20 years as a deputy sheriff and sergeant. He was promoted to sergeant in 2008 and worked in patrol with our chaplaincy program and worked many years of his career as a narcotics detective. He grew up in the community of Tranquility. He's married. He and his wife have 4 children, ages 28, 24, 18, and 12. He also has an 8-year-old grandchild. Rod's is a family of faith, and they are receiving support from their church at this time. I also want to acknowledge our Sheriff's Office chaplains. They responded to the scene as well as to the hospital, and they've been engaged and extremely helpful during this process, not only to the family, but to Sheriff's Office personnel. I spoke with Rod's wife today, and I asked her if she could send a message to the public and to the Sheriff's Office. What would she say? And she said simply, please pray for us. This is the 12th line of duty death that's occurred in the Fresno County Sheriff's Office since our existence in 1856. The Fresno Deputy Sheriff's Association has established an account, and those wishing to help may write a check payable to the Fresno Deputy Sheriff's Association. In the memo column, please write Rod Lucas Memorial Fund. They can be mailed to the Deputy Sheriff's Association, 1360 Van Ness Avenue, Fresno, California, 93721. I also want to thank all of the agencies, law enforcement, the agencies, federal, state, and local, that have sent their thoughts and prayers and well wishes, and the members of our Fresno County family. Some of those who are standing with me today on this stage are supervisors. Whenever tragedy happens, we all come together and support each other, and it's so very important. If anybody has any questions at this time, I will attempt to answer whatever I can.
Sheriff, you said you weren't going to release the weapon specifics, but it's a gun, right? It's a firearm?
Yes, it is a firearm.
Sheriff, you say that this was a meeting, they were just in the room. Was this kind of a routine thing, or were they just talking generally about their weapons?
This is their assigned workplace, so they were in their offices. So it wasn't a routine meeting. It was just that they were discussing their equipment, such as media camera people might talk about their cameras. So this was their normal workplace, and they were just having a discussion as you might in your own workplace.
Sheriff Mims, you said he was struck in the chest. Was he wearing a bulletproof vest at the time?
The assignment of Sergeant Lucas and everybody in that building is a plainclothes assignment, so they're not wearing uniforms, and no, he was not wearing a vest.
Sheriff, you mentioned 12 line of duty deaths. How many of those were accidents?
We have several that were traffic accidents. I don't have a number for you, but this is not the first accidental in the line of duty death that we've had.
What can you tell us about him? What kind of person was he?
Rod Lucas was very well respected within the sheriff's office. He truly was a leader in the best terms that I can describe as a leader in the sheriff's office. He was looked up to by those that worked with him. He was one of those people, and I think the ultimate compliment that any supervisor can get is he was the sergeant that people wanted to work for. He was that kind of guy. Again, he's a man of faith with his family. He helped coach his children's sports teams, very involved in his church. In fact, today the family are making arrangements, and as soon as those arrangements are made, we'll put that out. But he was down to earth, salt of the earth, good cop, and he was respected for that.
Sheriff, this is the second incident we had. What happened at
Yeah.
the jail, and then now we have an accidental incident here. We look to our police department and our sheriffs to protect us in time of need. I imagine your deputies are really going through it. What support or what do you offer your guys?
Good
when they're
question.
Going through something so tragic, especially after coming off of what we already came off of.
Sure.
What happened at the jail?
We have in place several things. We have our chaplains that will respond. We have a county employee assistance program, and specifically in the sheriff's office, we have a peer support program. So there's many avenues that we can take for and make available for our employees. We also, after an incident like this, have several debriefings where we meet with professionals that help us work through all of the issues that, as you can imagine, we're all going through. Unfortunately, we've got a binder that we put together in how we respond to line of duty deaths. And we pull it out and we go right down the line to make sure that we don't leave anything or anybody out. It's not just the deputies and our correctional officers. We have to think about our dispatchers, our people that work in our personnel office. We're all affected in different ways when things like this happen. And as you can imagine, in an organization of 1,200 employees, my job now is to steward everybody through this awful time. And I'll be spending a lot of time doing that.
Can you talk about, you addressed it a little bit, but just the emotions within the department?
Yeah.
A lot of support here, obviously, and that people who were there and witnessed this. And what is this department going through?
Well, all I can tell you that it is a process. We're grieving. I mean, we're going through the grieving process, and I have to tell you that the first stage of grieving is denial, saying this could not have happened, this didn't happen, and then coming to grips with that it did, and then how we process it individually, as a group, as a department, as a family, and we're working through that with the help of all of the people, not only that you see up here, but so many of those working behind the scenes. We're hurting right now, Corin. We're hurting. And I would just ask the media that you respect the family's privacy at this time. I did let her know that the media may find her So I let her know we can liaison with her and the family when she's ready to speak publicly. If she's ready to ever to speak publicly, we can help her do that. So there's a lot of moving parts. And we're taking care of business, but at the same time when we have to take care of business, we're emotionally hurt. But we have a lot of help to make it through.
Can you address how this might affect his unit, the narcotics unit?
Yeah. Well, I really don't know yet. They're getting the help that they need. We're making sure we're providing the services that they need to help work through this. And it's going to take some time to work through this. That particular group, as you can imagine, in an office off-site from downtown, is a very tightly knit group. They're close. And they'll help each other through this also.
And it was a tragic accident, obviously unexpected, but have you thought about maybe doing anything differently, speaking to those who were in the office at the time?
I'm not sure what you mean, but when we if we can figure out exactly what happened, it might lead us to doing something differently. We just don't know yet, but we won't be able to tell until we're through.
Are there any policies in place when you hand your weapon in a room like that, when you're not out in the field? Is there any policies in place at your office house?
No, there's not. We can't have a policy specific to every single situation. They were talking about a piece of their equipment, and that's not unusual in a law enforcement agency, whether it be a weapon or a piece of equipment, a computer. Of course, our policy does talk about handling our weapons safely, but we don't know exactly yet what happened in this incident.
Did you say how long he had been with the sheriff's office?
20 years. September 9th, 20 years ago was when he was hired, 1991.
Was it just one round that went off, Sheriff?
Yes, just one round in the chest.
How is the detective involved doing?
Well, as you can imagine, he's extremely upset. All I can say is that we're getting him the help that he needs, and we're going to provide any help that he needs. That's why we're giving him some time before we interview him to make sure that he's ready to be interviewed. As you can imagine, when this thing happens and it's accidental, there's a lot of emotions that are going to be going on. I have not spoke to him personally yet, but we're taking care of him.
You mean the investigation is going to continue, right?
Excuse me?
The investigation is.
Oh, absolutely. Again, he has not been interviewed yet, and I have not personally talked to him.
Why?
Because of his mental state at this point. As you can imagine, he's extremely upset. He needs to be ready to be interviewed. And we're going to get good statements when we do give him time to be ready to be interviewed. We'll get better statements from him.
So he's not going to be in the field, right?
Oh, no, he's off. He is off duty right now. And per our own policy about putting people off for 3 days whenever we have a traumatic incident like this. And we'll see if and when he's ready to come back.
The early expectation is he's not going to face charges. I mean, I know you haven't interviewed him and the investigation just started, but.
Yeah, as I said, we don't have any indication right now that this was anything other than an accident. There certainly was no disagreement, there was no argument, there was nothing like that going on.
Sheriff, you have a couple of the elected officials there as well.
Sure.
Did they have any statements that they wanted
You know, I asked beforehand and they said no, but they're certainly welcome to, should they wish to now. It's up to you.
That's very tragic. I happen to know that officer's mother. Known her for about 20 years. I mean, this is still a small town. Thank you. No, I just was saying that I knew his mother, and I didn't realize it was her son until I went to the hospital last night to see the sheriff. So it's very personal to everybody in the sheriff's department and in the rest of the county.
Sheriff, you you say how many people were in the room at the time?
In the actual room where this happened, there were 4 people, including Sergeant Lucas.
And what building was this? Was it a sheriff's office by the airport?
Sure, it's a leased sheriff's office building. It's our special investigations unit, and that's where they were. It's by the airport.
Sheriff, what was the mission of the Special Investigation Unit?
There are numerous assignments that they have, narcotics, vice, and they tend to catch unusual investigations. So if we have something that doesn't fit with our person's crime or doesn't fit with our property crime, they will get involved in those. Anything else? Tony will send out my comments to you as well as the pictures electronically, so you'll all have those. Thank you very much.